Regular meeting number 9 will now come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem.
Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our parents sighed. Lord, you have been our dwelling place for all generations, from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Dear God, it is our fervent prayer that you protect and watch over all women who have been the victims of stalking and domestic violence. And help us to keep them in their families safe in their time of need. As a governing body, strengthen our capacity, resolve, and resources to continue to help homeless individuals and families rebuild their lives and move into safe, stable, and permanent housing. And let us look to the day when every man, woman, and child in our community will have shelter. As a community and a city, we must never lose sight our focus and commitment to those on the margins, those most vulnerable among us. And finally, may we all find inspiration in the humble service and unfailing compassion of leaders like James A. Johnson, whom we honor and remember tonight as a faithful servant to his country, his city, and his beloved Driving Park community. May we pay tribute to the memory of Mr. Johnson by nurturing a new generation of leaders who will follow in his footsteps to put service above self. All of this we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
So moved.
Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. This week's communications received by the City Clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the City Bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not at this time.
Are there any resolutions or announcements by members of council? Councilmember Craig?
In light of Black History Month, I'd like to take this opportunity quickly to highlight two extraordinary African Americans for their significant contributions to our nation and this world. Daniel Chappie James Jr., General, U.S. Air Force, born February the 11th, 1920 at Pensacola, Florida, He learned to fly while attending the Tuskegee Institute, and after graduation in 1942, continued civilian flight training until he received an appointment as a cadet in the Army Air Corps in January 1943. He was commissioned in July 1943 and throughout the remainder of World War II. He trained pilots for the all-black 99th Pursuit Squadron and worked in other assignments. He was subsequently stationed in Ohio and in the Philippines. During the Korean War, he flew 101 missions as a pilot. From 1953 to 1956, he was at Otis Air Base, Massachusetts, receiving a promotion to major in that period. On graduating from the Air Command Staff School in 1957, he was assigned to staff duty in Washington. From 1960 to 1964, he was stationed in England, and from 1964 to 1966 in Arizona, and in 1966 to 1967 in Vietnam, where he flew 78 combat missions. By then, as colonel, he was vice commander of the 33rd Tactical Fighter Wing, Elgin Air Force Base, Florida, in 1967 to 1969, and then promoted to brigadier general, was named the commander of Willis Air Force Base in Libya. In March 1970, he became Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs and advanced to Major General. In September 1974, with the rank of Lieutenant General, he became Vice Commander of the Military Airlift Command at Scott Air Force Base, Illinois. In September 1975, he became the first black officer in the history of the United States military to obtain 4-star full general rank. At that time, he was named commander of the North American Air Defense Command, or NORAD, with responsibility for all aspects of the air defense of the United States and Canada. He was also a much sought after speaker, public speaker, and devoted considerable time to addressing youth groups, particularly minority students. He died shortly after his retirement from the Air Force of a heart attack in Colorado Springs, Colorado. His private memorial in Section 2 of Arlington National Cemetery says, in part, "This is my country. I believe in her. I'll protect her against all enemies, foreign and domestic." And then Mary McLeod Bethune. In 1906, a teacher named Mary McLeod built the Daytona Literacy and Industrial School for training Negro girls in Florida. Initially a one-woman operation, she enlisted the help of a few community members and sold baked goods to help raise funds for supplies and maintenance. After getting funding from one of the founders of Procter & Gamble, the school joined forces with an all-boys school in Jacksonville, and it became the Bethune-Cookman College, a seminal and extraordinary institution of higher learning, educating thousands of young people today. Later, she went on to found the National Council of Negro Women and worked with FDR on minority issues and youth policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Craig. Councilmember Klein, President Pro Tem Miller, Councilmember Mills, Councilmember Paley, Councilmember Tyson.
Yes, President Ginther, I have a couple of announcements. The first one is, again, for the first time in history of the private insurance market, consumers in every state will be able to go online to one place to check out their coverage options and get accurate information in easy-to-understand language. If you are uninsured or underinsured, there are 5 weeks left for open enrollment to find health insurance that's right for you and your family. The marketplace is available at healthcare.gov. For local residents, you can also go to www.ohioforhealth.org or call 1-800-648-1176 from 8 to 5 p.m. or 1-800-318-2596, 24 hours a day. There are 20 facilities that you can visit in our community, and I think they're listed on the screen right now. It is so important that if you don't have health care coverage, that you certainly go to this website or please call the number that I mentioned so that everyone has an opportunity to be able to have health care. And then lastly, volunteers have begun to gear up to help low to moderate income individuals keep more of their money they lose each year to unclaimed tax credits and expensive tax preparation fees. Tax Time is a network of nonprofit businesses, nonprofit business and government agencies that work to provide free tax assistance services and to connect people to financial education and savings opportunities. For more information about free tax help, go to www.taxtimecentralohio.org or call 211 for locations and appointments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. Any comments from our elected officials, City Auditor, City Attorney? Judge Barros, anything from the courts? Are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent action portion of the agenda? If not, may we now have a motion to waive reading of the titles of 30-day legislation by the city clerk?
So moved.
Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Finance Committee, Ordinance 352-2014. Health and Human Services Committee, Ordinances 285 and 287-2014. Public Utilities Committee, Ordinance 2985, 3032, 3036, 3040-2013, and Ordinances 236, 245, 251, 259, 274, 311, and 315-2014. Public Service and Transportation Committee, Ordinances 266 and 327-2014. Development Committee, Ordinance 394-2014. Rules and Reference Committee, Ordinances 2342-2013 and 173-484-2014. Zoning Committee, Ordinances 180-2014, 321, 404, 422, and 444-2014.
Thank you. The following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk now read the ordinance numbers of each into the record?
Resolutions of Expression 17X and 21X-2014. Finance Committee, Ordinances 172, 216, 243, 265, 292, 329, and 354-2014. Health and Human Services Committee, Ordinances 238, 295, 300, 356-2014. Recreation and Parks Committee, Ordinances 196, 256, 308, 333, 341, 342, 345-2014. Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, Ordinances 228, 237, 240, 241, 242, 267, 270, 273, 293, 294, 296, 299, 337-2014. Public Utilities Committee, Ordinances 133, 134, 138, 224, 229, 269, 278, 282, 310, 319, 320, and 334-2014. Technology Committee, Ordinances 288 and 343-2014. Development Committee, Ordinances 246, 307, 309, 322, 330, 417, and 418-2014. And appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A0004, 5, 6, 17, 18, and 19-2014.
We do have one speaker on the consent agenda this evening, Nathaniel Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins, welcome to Council Chambers. You come forward to the podium, share your name, address, any organizations you represent. Looks like you have signed up to speak on, is it 0330-2014.
Yes, I am. Nathaniel George Wilkins, 1612 Arlington Avenue, solely as the chairman, solely for vacant and abandoned properties in the North Linden area. I'm speaking in favor of this. I think there ought to be more done, but I'm questioning for more money for the development of fair housing for 170-5600 instead of $105,456,000. So I'm questioning for more money to be used for this purpose. Thank you for your time.
Director Shoney, I'm not sure if there's any additional insight to our agreement with the Columbus Urban League regarding the fair housing program you'd like to share at this point?
President Ginther, I don't have any information beyond what's in council's packets tonight. However, I would be happy to get back with you and your staff with some more information on how those numbers are derived.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments either for Mr. Wilkins or the administration? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval of these items designated as consent actions.
So moved.
Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll by voice.
Craig?
Yes.
Klein? Miller? Mills?
Yes, with the exception of 0246-2014 and 0319-2014, on which I am abstaining.
Paley? Tyson?
A yes, with the exception of 0293-2014, which I will be abstaining.
President Ginther.
Yes, consent agenda carries. Now proceed with the second reading of 30-day table and emergency legislation. The first committee is the Finance Committee. Councilmember Tyson chairs that committee. Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The first ordinance is 0255-2014. It is to authorize the city treasurer to modify and extend its contract with First Data Government Solutions, LP, for services necessary for electronic payments on behalf of the Departments of Public Utilities, Public Service, Building and Zoning Services, Health, and Public Safety, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, and to authorize the expenditure of $317,800 from the various funds excuse me, and to declare an emergency. This legislation, again, is to modify its contract with First Data for online consumer payments, credit card processing services for the period of March 1 of 2014 through February 28th of 2015. The Treasurer's Office planned to bid these services in 2013. However, the Department of Technology requested that the bid process be delayed for another year to allow technology standards governing citywide credit card payment processing to be developed for all city agencies wishing to acquire online payment processing services. The City Treasurer's Office therefore wishes to extend the contract with First Data for another year to allow for the development of such standards and comprehensive bid specifications. I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller, Mills, Paley, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 0393-2014. It's to authorize and direct the Finance and Management Director to establish purchase orders with various vendors for the provision of unleaded fuel and fuel credit card services, to authorize expenditure of $4 million from the Fleet Management Services Fund, and to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Codes of 1959, and to declare an emergency. This legislation is for purchase orders for various grades of fuel, including ethanol and unleaded fuel for the Fleet Management Division. This ordinance also authorizes the Finance and Management Director to issue purchase orders for bulk unleaded fuel with Mansfield Oil Company of Gainesville, Inc. Mansfield Oil Company of Gainesville, Inc. was deemed the lowest and responsive bidder. Ordinance number 0329-2014 seeks authorization to establish the universal term contract with Mansfield Oil Company for provisions of bulk unleaded fuel. And we passed that in the consent part of tonight's agenda. This legislation will also establish funding with Beams BP to cover any costs incurred prior to the establishment of the new bulk funding fueling contract with Mansfield Oil Company of Gainesville. And with that, I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. I would now like to move to Health and Human Services. Thank you. The first ordinance is 0298-2014. Is to authorize and direct the Board of Health to accept a grant from the Ohio Commission on Minority Health in the amount of $7,500 for two Minority Health Month events, to authorize the appropriation of $7,500 from the unappropriated balance of the Health Department's grants fund, and to declare an emergency. And these events will happen in April when it is Minority Health Month. Move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. And my last ordinance, and as I'm getting ready to start reading, I'm going to ask for Sarah Loken to start walking towards the podium. It's 0332-2014. It's to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a contract with the Community Shelter Board to support the Rebuilding Lives program, to authorize expenditure of $831,705 from the general fund and $71,029 from the 2014 Community Development Block Grant Fund, and to declare an emergency. The total amount is $902,734. The Rebuilding Lives program is a two-pronged approach to ending homelessness and literally rebuilding lives. The first prong is meeting the short-term needs of the homeless men and women through an improved safety net of emergency shelter. The second prong is the meeting of long-term needs through the development and operation of permanent supportive housing. These funds are used to meet the housing and homelessness needs identified in 2010 through 2014 Consolidated Plan. Supportive services will consist of the coordination of necessary social services for homeless men and referrals for homeless men and women to physical and mental health agencies. This funding ensures the operations and services for the Rebuilding Lives units in Columbus. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council Member. Good evening to all of you. Thousands of area residents will arrive at the doorstep of emergency shelters this year. More and more people in our community are experiencing homelessness and being forced from their homes by deepening poverty. The legislation before you tonight provides funding for permanent supportive housing for people experiencing long-term or repeated homelessness. The average cost of supportive housing is $33 a day per person, or about $12,000 a year. This is much lower than comparable costs for institutional programs like $25,000 a year for state prison or inpatient psychiatric hospital, which costs at least 5 times more than permanent supportive housing. Supportive housing gives a great return on investment. It has been shown to result in cost savings for Medicaid emergency rooms, behavioral health care, and substance abuse detox services. More than 1,900 units of supportive housing have been developed so far in Columbus, and by developing this type of housing, our community has made great progress in addressing long-term homelessness and ending human suffering. And I'm excited to tell you that we've had recent success with getting people to work. Workforce development programs have been piloted inside supportive housing programs with agencies like Goodwill, Donato's, and Columbus Hospitality Management. Even for those who've been homeless for a long time and who have disabilities, they are getting back to work. And we've just been awarded a 3-year grant from the Ohio Housing Finance Agency to continue this workforce development program. I want to thank you for your incredible support, and with your help, we will continue getting people off the streets, keeping shelter beds open, and helping people find safe and affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah? Sarah, I have one question. Just First of all, I want to say thank you for the work that you're doing for the Community Shelter Board. Certainly, we know that our numbers are certainly increasing just due to what's going on in our economy, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. One question, I just mentioned the announcement about the Affordable Care Act, and just wondering if there's been any connection between some of the individuals that are currently within the Community Shelter Board's Rebuilding Lives program. Have they been able to be able to meet with representative navigators to be able to get the support, the health care services that they may need?
I believe so. I don't have numbers with me, but I'd be glad to check into that and follow up with you with a detailed progress report on that.
Thank you. I think it will be a great connection, and we just need to make sure as many people as possible take advantage of the Affordable Care Act. So,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions or comments from anyone for this legislation, I move for passage.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. That's all I have in my committees this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. Our next committee is the Recreation and Parks Committee. Councilmember Craig chairs that committee. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Ginther. Tonight in the Recreation and Parks Committee, I have two ordinances. First is Ordinance 0312-2014 to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to enter into various contracts for the purchase of trees for the Recreation and Parks Department, to authorize the expenditure of $30,000 from the Recreation and Parks Tree Replacement Fund to establish an auditor's certificate in the amount of $30,000 for the tree purchases, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code pursuant to Section 329.27 and to declare an emergency. Assistant Director Lee's comments regarding this ordinance.
Thank you, Councilmember Craig. This funding will be used for replacement trees or trees that we're going to put at our nursery that we will use then. Eventually, they will be on a 2 to 3 year planting time, and then those will be taken out into the community, primarily used for replacements of the emerald ash borer tree, or the emerald ash borer, the ash trees that have been taken down and will be replaced. And so this is all to supplement our nursery that we have down on South High Street.
Thank you very much for your comments. There is a waive competitive bidding provision on here. Would you care to speak to that? Or I know that we have been, this is an important ordinance, and we appreciate the work that we've been doing on this. Any questions? Did you have further comments on this? Any questions from council members? If not, move for passage.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Next is Ordinance 0373-2014 to authorize the appropriation and transfer of $190,000 from the hotel motel tax fund to the Recreation and Parks Operating Fund 285 for the support of various annual cultural and arts programming, to appropriate $190,000 in the Recreation and Parks Fund 285 and to declare an emergency. This ordinance continues the city's funding of various cultural and arts programs that enrich our community. The funds are generated by the hotel motel tax and typically support festivals like the Jazz and Rib Fest, Whole Harvest Jamboree, Festival Latino, and other community events, as well as the Scioto Mile programming. I'd like to thank Council Members Zach Klein and Priscilla Tyson for supporting my ordinance as co-sponsors, and I certainly welcome any remarks they would like to make. First, I'd like to ask Recreation and Parks Assistant Director Elise if she has any additional comments on this legislation.
Thank you, Councilmember Craig. As always, each year we appreciate the generosity of City Council in allocating these funds to us, not only to us to put on the events that Councilmember Craig mentioned, but also through our partnership through sponsorship program, which allows some of the other events in our city to help them get the funds that they need to successfully put on their events, all for the benefit of our citizens. So we're very grateful and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Assistant Director. Comments from Ms. Tyson, Mr. Klein? Ms. Tyson?
Councilman Craig, just thank you for this ordinance, and it is an important one because it allows our residents to be able to to come to different events, to share the diversity of our community, and so it's a great it's a great ordinance, and just thank you for offering it this evening.
Well, again, I would certainly want to thank you each for your support. I know that you've each have chaired this committee, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you around this extremely important committee. Thank you again, Assistant Director Lees, for your comments. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. That is all that I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Craig. Our next committee is the Public Safety and Judiciary Committee. Councilmember Klein chairs that committee. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. First in Public Safety is 272-2014 to authorize the Director of Public Safety to modify the current contract with Med 3000, Inc. for EMS billing, collection, and reporting services for the Division of Fire, to authorize the expenditure of $1.6 million for collection services and $50,000 for refunds from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. Deputy Director.
Yes. Safety Chair Klein, President Ginther, members of council, this is our annual contract for the collection of EMS fees. This is, I think, going on the 11th year now, where we have billed insurance companies or Medicare, Medicaid for reimbursement for transport for our citizens of Columbus. We anticipate, because of this contract, we will bring in revenue of about $15 million in this year, which would bring us over the 10-year period somewhere up around $120 million. And I appreciate your consideration of this ordinance this evening. Thank you.
So the billing is collected from the insurance carrier and not from the citizen?
That is correct. We do not bill residents of Columbus. We will only bill them their insurance carrier, or if they are covered by a form of government program. Unless they are outside the city, then their insurance company may receive a bill from us.
Okay. Any questions or comments? I move for passage.
Second.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
313-2014 to authorize the Director of Public Safety to enter into a contract with Upstate Wholesale DBA Bright Computers for the purchase of advanced authentication software, licenses, and maintenance for the Division of Police, to waive competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code 1959, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $67,554.84 from the Law Enforcement Seizure Fund, and to declare an emergency. Deputy Director, the waiving competitive bidding provisions.
Safety Chair Klein, President Ginther, members of council, essentially the FBI Criminal Justice Information Service basically is a database warehouse of information, fingerprints, criminal histories on individuals that the police needs access to from time to time. They have implemented a new requirement in 2013 that essentially you need two forms of verification to get into that database, a password and some other type of verification system. Typically, we would have had through this year to do that, but since we upgraded our or our computers in our cruisers last year, they read that as an opportunity for us to comply with the two-factor authentication. So we immediately went out and got 3 estimates from vendors that would have likely bid on this anyway, and we are taking the low bid of those informal estimates of roughly $67,000. And the two verifications are a coded password, and then we will use a fingerprint system so that the officer's fingerprint will be the second authorizing agent to actually get into the system. And we appreciate council's consideration of this ordinance this evening.
Any questions or comments? I move for passage.
Second.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Finally, in Public Safety is 367-2014 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into a contract with the Capital Area Humane Society to allow for the completion of 7-day dispatch coverage and assist in the funding of licensed humane agents for the purpose of conducting animal cruelty investigations within the city of Columbus for the protection of at-risk animals in the community, and to authorize the expenditure of $219,000 from the general fund and to declare an emergency. I'd like to give Councilmember Mills, a co-sponsor on this legislation, an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Chairman Klein. This is a very important piece of legislation. Not sure if many people know the value of the Capital Area Humane Society, but I sure hope that they investigate it and look at the website and understand the work and the value that they contribute to our community. For the over 3,000 complaints that they've handled last year and the nearly 800 pets that they recovered and secured through cruelty investigations. But one of their most important programs is their Safe Haven program that I hope everyone who can appreciate a pet being a part of their family. The Safe Haven program provides support to families who are subject to domestic violence and allowing their pets to have a safe place to go while they find a place of refuge and while they're in transition. And for some victims of domestic violence, this is a major part of them remaining in the home or leaving the home because they would be leaving a family member behind, and sometimes that can be part of the reason for them staying and getting help for themselves. And so it is one important part of the aspect of the great work of the Capital Area Humane Society. But in addition to that, their support to our first responders and police when arriving at situations that involve pets. So they have a great value to our community and a great support to our first responders. And this is why I'm excited to co-sponsor this legislation. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for the words, Councilmember Mills. Do you have anything to add, Deputy Director?
Safety Chair Klein, President Ginther, members of council, this is the second year. I want to thank council for this funding, as well as the mayor for including this in the budget. As Councilmember Mills articulated, this helps with our enforcement, and they also, because of their availability, they'll take just about any animal that's out there. So that's obviously very helpful to us as well, whereas the county, I believe, it takes only dogs. So it's very helpful in getting a lot of these animals off the street. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? I move for passage.
Second.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Moving on to public utilities, Council President. Before we begin with legislation, I'd like to ask Director Davies to give us an update on water main breaks. I know the mayor signed an executive order to assist the department in correcting some of the breaks, fixing some of the breaks. Where do we stand on that, and how is the public affected?
Chairman Klein, President Ginther, members of council, roughly 10 days ago, we had 106 working breaks. At that time, we had the ability to hire 2 outside contractors through an existing contract, and we also approached the mayor about a mayor's emergency to get 2 more for a total of 4. So in addition to all of our distribution staff and those crews, I'm happy to say this morning we're down to 48. And so people have done a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time. We're going to try to get off the 4 emergency contracts after this week, but because of the drop in temperature that we're expecting, just to be careful and to avoid any having to go back and get them back, we're going to hold on for another week. But our expectation is after this week, we won't need them anymore and rely just on our crews. And also our sewer maintenance operation crews that are also out in the field did a great job with all the snow. As that was melting, it clogs a lot of sewers, so they were out in anticipation of that. We weren't sure how much rain was going to come. So they've done a tremendous job, and our power folks had a lot of wind this weekend, knocked a lot of people off the grid, so they did a good job as well. So I'm very happy with, just like everybody in the city, it's been a very difficult winter, but our crews are doing the best they can.
Kudos to you and your team. Any questions or comments for the director on those issues before we proceed to legislation? Thank you, Director, for the update. One piece, 3/16/2014, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into a contract for the option to purchase Andritz D5LL centrifuge parts and services with Andritz Separation, Inc., to authorize the expenditure of $1 to establish the contract from the general fund, to waive formal competitive bidding requirements of the Columbus City Code 1959, and to declare an emergency. Like I asked Deputy Director of Public Safety, could you elaborate on the waiving competitive bidding provisions, sir?
Sure. Chairman Klein, President Ginther, members of council, this is a bit unique because we actually did follow the competitive bidding process. The city's purchasing offices, they solicited 23 bids and nobody responded. After the bid opening, we did get a a response. The purchasing office asked our department to review it. It did meet all the requirements of the bid, and in fact is the company that previously held the contract. So given all of that, the purchasing office is recommending that competitive bidding be waived so that we can enter into this contract.
Thank you, Director Davies. Any questions or comments for the director on this piece of legislation? I move for passage.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
And that wraps up safety and utilities. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Klein. Our next committee is the Public Service and Transportation Committee. President Pro Tem Miller chairs that committee. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Ginther. In the Public Service and Transportation Committee, we have 2/11/2014 to authorize and direct the city auditor to appropriate funds in the amount of $1,009,561.69 within the Local Transportation Improvement Fund to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract with Complete General Construction Company and to provide for the payment of construction administration and inspection services in connection with the pedestrian safety improvements Hague Valley View Safe Routes to Schools project, to authorize the expenditure of up to $1,009,561.69 from the Local Transportation Improvement Fund and to declare an emergency. The pedestrian safety improvements, the Hague Valley View Safe Routes to School project, starts at the drive entrance of Westmore Middle School on Valley View Drive and consists of installation of a multi-use path on the south side only to Hague Avenue, and then the multi-use path proceeds south on Hague Avenue to link to the existing sidewalk across from Carroll Avenue. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
244/2014 to allow the Director of the Department of Public Service to execute those documents necessary for the city to grant 3 encroachment easements that will legally allow this installation of proposed building elements associated with 250 High project to extend into the public right-of-way. The City of Columbus Department of Public Service received a request from 250 High LLC asking the city to allow a number of encroachments within the High Street public right-of-way at 250 High Street, located on the southeast corner of High Street and Rich. These encroachment areas are defined, and it will comprise of a canopy, building sunshades, building foundation, and during the design phase of the 250 project, it is proposed to be comprised of 12-story luxury apartment building and 5 floors of office space. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
Is it okay to move to and proceed to the small minority business development, President Ginther? We have one item, is 165/2014, to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to modify an existing professional services contract with Crabb Brown and James LLP for Small Business Inclusion Program Development Project within an amended scope of services and to list and a list of deliverables and to declare an emergency. And it is my understanding under this legislation, there is no additional amount to this original contract. This is just to amend the scope of services and deliverables. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
And can I proceed to the Technology Committee? In the Technology Committee, we have one item, 192/2014, to authorize and direct the city auditor to establish an auditor's certificate in the amount of $750,000 from the Department of Technology Information Services Division Capital Improvement Bond Fund, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to establish capital blanket purchase orders on behalf of the Department of Technology for the Division of Police utilizing current universal term contracts, vendors, to authorize the Director of Department of Technology to enter into contract with various non-UTC contract vendors for the provision of technology equipment purchases and services upgrades at the Central Safety Building, to waive the competitive bidding provision of the Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $750,000 from the Department of Technology Information Services Division Capital Improvement Bond Fund and to declare an emergency. It was due to the inclement weather and also the historically low temperature that there were several damages that occurred at the Central Safety Building. Based on their best efforts and knowledge, the city believes it's necessary to immediately engage these contractors and vendors to provide a range of equipment and services related to the repair of these damages and to replace the end-of-life, and that's the obsolete technology related to the equipment in the Central Safety Building. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like to move for passage.
Craig Klein Miller, Mills Paley Tyson, President Ginther.
And that is all I have this evening, President Ginther.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Miller. Our next committee is the Development Committee. Councilmember Mills chairs that committee. Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Ginther. Tonight in development, I have the following ordinances beginning with 0258-2014 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a contract with the Columbus Landmarks Foundation for services associated with the management of the Heritage Home Program in Columbus, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $150,000 from the Jobs Growth Fund and to declare an emergency. Zach Klein is a co-sponsor. I'll allow him an opportunity to speak, and we also have a speaker on this ordinance. Councilmember Klein.
Thank you, Chair Mills. We spent a significant amount of resources and time in the city, especially over the past probably 18 months to 24 months, talking about demolition and razing buildings because of the blight and problems that they cause in our neighborhoods, and rightfully so. You go out and tour many of our beautiful neighborhoods, and some of them are plagued with vacant and abandoned housing. But I think this program offers a focus on the other R, and that's rehabilitation, which is equally as important in, as our neighborhoods rebound from the worst recession since the Great Depression. And when I was approached by the folks with the Columbus Landmarks and the Heritage Home Program, and they were giving me compelling evidence of what this program has done in other cities, in discussions in conjunction with the Department of Development, I felt in consultation with council and with the department and with the Landmarks group that this is a tremendous opportunity to bring the program that has been successful elsewhere to the city of Columbus, so that we're not just focusing on raising homes, but we're also focusing on rehabilitation. And really, it's the 1-2 punch that can be effective as to make our neighborhoods come back and rebound and be at full strength, which is, I know, is the goal of all of our council colleagues, all of my council colleagues, in what we talk about and what we do. What can we do to make Columbus's neighborhoods safe and strong? And with the problems plaguing the neighborhoods, it's a shift through this program that we can focus on rehabilitation. So thank you, Councilmember Mills, for bringing forward the legislation. And I think this can really do tremendous good in the city of Columbus. Homes that can be eligible, and I think we'll hear from the speaker exactly what the confines of the program are, but if the home is 50 years or older, so that's 1964 or older, you can use this program to your advantage to rehab a home, to make it your home, to make it your own, to make it livable, and really add value to one of the many great Columbus neighborhoods that we have here in the city of Columbus. Thank you, Council Member.
Thank you, Councilmember Klein. I have seen the Heritage Home Program at work in the city of Cleveland. It has made a huge difference in the Wade Park area, and the other construction around it just complements the investment from the Heritage Home Program. I have Mr. Ed Lentz here to speak. Mr. Lentz, if you'll please approach the podium, please share your first and last name and any organizations that you may represent. And Mr. Lentz, you have 3 minutes to approach council.
I'm Ed Lentz. I'm the Executive Director of the Columbus Landmarks Foundation. Chair Mills, Councilmember Klein, President Ginther. The Columbus Landmarks Foundation was founded in 1977. Now, for the past 37 years, we've been encouraging the preservation of the built environment, the advocacy of sound new design for the city of Columbus. We've come a long way since 1977. We have preserved and renovated and restored many important buildings and seen the revitalization of several historic districts. We've also seen a number of new additions to the Columbus skyline. None of this would have been possible without the active support and encouragement of Columbus City Council. I come here tonight to thank you once again for that support and to congratulate you on the successes that we've seen. Now we need your help once again. With the support of Council, Columbus Landmarks is seeking support for a public-private partnership to assist in the revitalization of our city with a low-interest loan and rehabilitation assistance program. As Chair Mills has mentioned, in Cleveland, this program has been extraordinarily successful under the auspices of an organization similar to us, the Cleveland Restoration Society, and more than 1,000 homes have been helped with this program just in Cleveland, as well as many other cities as well. I think it's time this program comes to Columbus. It promises to bring habitation hope to many parts of our city, until now not affected by city development efforts. Columbus Landmarks has worked successfully with the City of Columbus for many years on projects of mutual interest. This new initiative is the latest of those efforts, and I assure you it will be successful as well. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Questions?
Councilmember Klein.
Mr. Lentz, could you, I know that the funding that we talked about it's $150,000, it's $75,000 really over 2 years to help support a position within the landmarks to get this program up and running, and your goal is to be self-sufficient, so we're here kind of as the gunpowder to get you going. How does the program work mechanically?
Basically, what we are doing is working with certain neighborhoods around the city. We will be soliciting persons to seek this program out. We will be providing assistance with regard to specifications for the rehabilitation. We refer them to a local bank or banks, which will work with a linked deposit program in order to provide low-interest rehabilitation loans in the range of 2% money, based on the final rehab of the home, what that home will be worth after the rehab. We also are looking for buildings or houses that are more than 50 years old. So to that extent, we will be working within the core city. There are a lot of houses, as you've already said, Councilmember Klein, that are 50 years old or older, that wouldn't really be impacted by some of the other kind of programs that the city is already successfully undertaking. So we feel we're filling a niche here, an important niche that needs to be filled. Is that hopefully responsive to your question? Okay.
Thank you. And Ms. Lentz, I did have one question for you. Mm-hmm. And understanding the decision for the age of the home, is there any other criteria that you would care to share with the public in regards to how this program, you see the program working?
Well, we see this program working in a public-private partnership with districts that really need some help. We have just completed at Landmarks a partnership with United Way over the past several years with regard to the 5 target neighborhoods that they've specified for the moment. We will be working within those neighborhoods for certain because of our continuing long relationship with United Way and adjacent communities to that. So in essence, we're looking at the old city. We're looking at the city, I'd say, within the 3 to 4 mile ring for openers for this first couple of years. But if our success is the same as Cleveland, this program can go citywide. In Cleveland, it's gone out into suburban communities. It's gone into whole cities near Cleveland as well. Now, they've been doing this for the last 20 years, so they've had a little opportunity. I can assure you in the first couple of years, they didn't do 1,000 homes, nor are we. But we're confident we'll be able to get this program off the ground with the assistance of the city in the next couple of years.
Thank you very much. Any other Councilmember Tyson?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Mills. Just want to say really congratulations to Councilmember Mills and Councilmember Klein, and also congratulate Director Shoney and Mr. Lentz, because we certainly know that within the central city of our community that there are many neighborhoods who certainly do need, who people want to fix up their homes, don't have the ability to do so for a low interest amount of money to be able to to continue to improve their neighborhood. So I'm glad that we thank the council members for being so innovative, that we certainly can learn from many other cities across the country that are doing fabulous work in their communities, and just to continue to make our city a great place for everyone. So excited about the program, looking forward to all the specifications when they get ready to come out to the community so that we can share those with our community and have I know we have more than 1,000 homes that also need this type of, these funds. So congratulations for bringing this to our attention, and Councilman Klein, Councilman Mills, congratulations on this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lentz. Final comments, as you've heard me say, it's exciting to see us celebrate our birthday, but it's very important that we preserve our history and show the tribute to how our city has gotten to where it is today. And as we continue to move forward, I'm very excited about this program. Look forward to seeing photos from the before and the after. I think that'll be exciting to see as we see our neighborhoods change. And a huge thank you to Councilmember Klein for his work on this legislation. If there are no other comments or questions, I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller, Mills, Paley, Tyson, President Ginther.
Next, I have ordinance 0268-2014 to authorize the expenditure up to $450,000 from the 2012 Housing Preservation Fund for the provision of grants providing lead abatement activities in accordance with HUD guidelines under the Lead Safe Columbus program, to authorize the city auditor to partially cancel an auditor certificate and to declare an emergency. If there are no comments or questions, I move for passage. By voice, my apologies.
Craig? Klein? Miller? Mills?
Yes.
Paley? Tyson?
Abstain.
President Ginther.
Thank you. Next, I have ordinance 0331-2014 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a contract with the Community Development Collaborative of Greater Columbus to authorize expenditure of $25,000 from the general fund and $20,000 from the Community Development Block Grant Fund, and to declare an emergency. If there are no comments or questions, I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller, Mills, Paley, Tyson, President Ginther.
That's all I have this evening.
Anything else to come before council this evening? We do have a few non-agenda speakers we'll take momentarily, and we'll reconvene for regular meeting number 10 at 6:30 for the zoning committee. But if not, entertain a motion to adjourn. Clerk, call the roll.
Craig Klein, Miller, Mills, Paley, Tyson, President Ginther.
We stand adjourned. Regular meeting number 10 will now come to order. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
So move.
Clerk, call the roll.
Craig Klein, Miller, Mills, Paley, Tyson, President Ginther.
Are there any communications and reports received by the city clerk?
No, there are not.
Any first readings of 30-day legislation?
No, there are not.
We will now go to the zoning committee. President Pro Tem Miller chairs the committee. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Ginther. In the zoning committee tonight, we have 220-2014 to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 333-2.037 R2F residential district and 333-2.26 C3 minimum side yard permitted of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 148 South Powell Road to conform an existing 4-unit dwelling with a reduced minimum side yard in the R2F residential district. The applicant is Brad DeHaze. Proposed use is a 4-unit dwelling. It received the Greater Hilltop Area Commission recommendation for approval and also the City Department recommendation for approval. And I have no speaker slips. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like to first to waive to second reading.
Craig Klein, Miller, Mills, Paley, Tyson, President Ginther.
Next, I would like to move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller, Mills, Paley, Tyson, President Ginther.
347-2014 to rezone 135 Dilmont Drive, being 3.69 plus or minus acres located on the east side of Dilmont Drive, 400 plus or minus feet south of Lozelle Road East from LC2 Limited Commercial District to LAR12 Limited Apartment Residential in LC2 Limited Commercial Districts. The applicant is Donald Kelly and Associates Incorporated. The proposed use is apartment and office development. It received the Development Commission recommendation for approval and also the City Department recommendation for approval. And I have no speaker slips. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like to first to amend to emergency with a voice vote.
Craig. Klein. Miller.
Yes.
Mills.
Abstain.
Paley. Tyson. President Ginther.
Next, I'd like to move for passage with a voice vote.
Craig. Klein. Miller.
Yes.
Mills. Paley. Tyson. President Ginther.
Next is 348, 2014, and it's the companion variance to the previous one, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3333.02, AR12, ARLD, and AR1, apartment residential district use, 3312.21BD, landscaping and screening, 3312.25, maneuvering, 3312.49, minimum number of parking spaces required, 3321.01, dumpster area, 3321.09, screening, 3333.16, fronting, 3333.24, rear yard, and 3333.255, perimeter yard of the Columbus City Code for the property located at 135 Dilmont Drive, and to permit commercial parking and maneuvering in residentially zoned property and reduce development standards for an apartment building in the LAR12 Limited Apartment Residential District and an office development in the LC2 Limited Commercial District. The applicant is Donald Kelly and Associates. Proposed use is apartment office development with reduced development standards. And this received the City Department recommendation for approval. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like to amend to emergency first with a voice vote.
Craig. Klein. Miller.
Yes.
Mills. Paley. Tyson. President Ginther.
Next, I'd like to move for passes with a voice vote.
Craig. Klein. Miller.
Yes.
Mills. Paley. Tyson. President Ginther.
That is all we have in zoning tonight, President Ginther.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Miller. Nothing else to come before zoning this evening. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Clerk, call the roll.
Craig. Klein. Miller. Mills. Paley. Tyson. President Ginther.
Stand adjourned.